You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So I just saw Michael Caine tell a story. And Michael Caine, whose birthday was exactly this time last week, he was talking about how he had just gotten into Hollywood. He had done the movie Alfie. He was in Hollywood for the first time in his life, in California or America for the first time in his life. And his wife, who was an actress, was busy, so he was staying at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and he had nothing to do all day, so he was just hanging out in the lobby when a helicopter lands. And out of the helicopter and into the lobby comes John Wayne. And by the way, the conversation between John Wayne and Michael Caine has to be any person who does imitations. That's like their best thing ever. Yeah. So Pilgrim. But so John Wayne walks in, sees Michael Caine over in the corner and approaches him and says, I'm not going to do the accents or the voices, but he says, what's your name, son? And Michael Caine says, oh, it's Michael Caine. And he says, you're in that Alfie movie, aren't you? You're going to be a star. Michael's kind of taken aback by that. He's like, well, thank you. That's I appreciate that. He says, Wayne says, I'm going to give you 2 pieces of advice. He says, first, talk low, talk slow, and don't say that much. It's like, oh, all right. What's the other piece of advice? And John Wayne looks down and sees that Michael Caine is wearing a pair of suede shoes. He goes, get rid of those suede shoes. Michael Caine's a little confused by that. He goes, why? He says, I just told you, you're going to be a star. So that means at some point, probably soon, you're going to be in the men's room using a urinal. And some guy's going to come up and use the one next to you. He's going to look over, see who you are, and go, oh, you're Michael Caine. And soon he'll be peeing on your shoes. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. And we are going to talk about what's going on with Shazam! Fury of the Gods. But first, let me welcome Triple B, Ed, Cool, and Thomas. Thank you guys for coming in, and please hit that thumbs up button if you would. It would be greatly appreciated. Or the like button or whatever it is on whichever format you're on. Jay is running the board today. And he and I will be sticking around here after today's show and joined by Sean and Kyle as we'll be doing in-stores this week where we've got a bunch of new books, including the new Exo-Man of War, the new Order and Outrage from Jim Starlin and Rags Morales, a new book called Neighbors, and just some really good stuff. So you want to stick around for that. After that will be Minute to Skim It, where the crew from the Space Cadets grab brand new books off the shelf, scan them over, and tell you what they think. And then Country Road Comics is going to be on later tonight with some great auctions that you'll want to keep an eye on. Mint Hunter will not be on tonight. He had to cancel. So, all right, let's get into it. We've got, if you haven't watched, last week I wasn't around much, but we've got this somewhat new format where we're going to do the latest news, take a break, do our main topic, take a break, and then we'll hit some key collecting comics that have to do with our main topic. And we're going to stick with that format for a while. I think it's working pretty good, so we'll be doing that today as well. But let's go ahead and jump into the news. We've got quite a bit, as you'd expect with it being, Tuesday, so we've got the weekend news to catch up on and everything. But I don't do a whole lot of comic book news, and I actually wanted to do this one because it involves an old friend of mine. Legendary horror creator Steve Niles is returning to IDW this summer with a harrowing gothic horror outing called Bryn Mawr, a 5-part comic book miniseries set on a remote island plagued by a sinister generational curse. The grisly supernatural thriller featuring art by Damian Worm, who Niles had collaborated on back on October Fraction. And this is all going to come out in June of 2023, so this year. In Bryn Mawr, the recently divorced and newly sober Mark Turner returns to his hometown of Turner Island, hoping to rebuild his shattered life and rekindle a relationship with his estranged daughter Sophie. Planning to renovate the town's dilapidated church into a home for himself, Mark dreams of a second chance soon begins to crumble as he encounters hostility from the locals and finds himself enmeshed in a dark and sinister legacy of intrigue dating back to when the island was first named after his ancestors. Locked in a battle with the malefic forces beyond his control, Mark must work to uncover the island's dark history while keeping himself and Sophie safe from harm and staying away from the battle in the process. Now, like I said, Steve and I go way back. I worked with him some on 30 Days a Night. We've done a couple series together, Strange Tales over at, Steve Niles' Strange Tales over at Image, Savage over at Image. Yeah, we've worked together a lot. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Steve's got in store. He did have a quote that goes along with it. He says, "I've had the title Bryn Mawr in mind for years, waiting for the right story. This one just felt right. It has themes that I love to work with often. Being an outsider in a strange land, the struggles of a single parent, plus a good dose of horror and scares. One of the big motivations for Bryn Mawr was getting to work with Damian Worm again. I love working with him. He's really bringing out the big guns for this series." So, guys, mark that down, June. And that's probably going to be in the new catalog that's coming out this week. So keep an eye out for Bryn Mawr from Steve Niles and IDW and Damian Worm. Okay, we're going to move on. We've got some Star Wars news, 2 bits of Star Wars news. We have, there's been a kind of a top secret Star Wars movie that hasn't really been that top secret, that is going to be directed by Sharmin Obad-Chinoy, and it seems that film has now lost its screenwriters. Supposedly Damon Lindelof and Justin Britt Gibson were working on it, but they have now exited the project. Details out of the film's plot are still under wraps, though, and we understand that Obad-Chinoy is still going to do the film as Rainey at the helm, so they're going to be looking for a new screenwriter. And there's a good chance we're going to get further details on the project at next month's Star Wars Celebration. Now, sources suggest the film is still in a solid position to be one of the first out of the gate for the franchise, because it's been a long time since we had a Star Wars movie. It's been 2019 when we got The Rise of Skywalker. So it's going to be good to get a Star Wars film again, and they haven't announced any yet. There's been rumors, but they've been focusing on television series like The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it'll be nice to see them back on the big screen. Now, while the specific reasoning behind the departure of Lindelof and Britt Gibson hasn't been disclosed, Lindelof did say in an interview with Slash Film, "I will just say that for reasons that I can't get into on Sunday morning, on this day, the degree of difficulty is extremely, extremely high. If the film can't be great, it shouldn't exist." That's all I have to say, because I have the same association with Star Wars as you do, which is it's the first movie I saw sitting in my dad's lap, 4 years old, May of 77. I think it's possible that sometimes when you hold something in such high reverence and esteem, you start to get in the kitchen and you just go, maybe I shouldn't be cooking. Maybe I should just be eating. Well, just leave it at that point. So maybe it sounds like it got overwhelming to him to work in the Star Wars field, if it means that much to him, and he had to step away. Hey, Backwoods, good to see you. Also in Star Wars news, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert are going to direct an episode of the upcoming Disney Plus series, The Skeleton Crew, the Star Wars series. Now, the duo directed the episode before their ultimate multi-Oscar winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once, came out last spring. As Kwan made it known on his Instagram, Skeleton Crew, which stars Jude Law, is from Spider-Man filmmaker John Watts and follows a group of kids during the New Republic era who are trying to find their way home in the galaxy. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are executive producers, and of course, this does tie into The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. There's all supposed to be pirates, and we did just meet a pirate captain and his crew in The Mandalorian, so maybe that's connected too. Now, Kwan on his Instagram said, "We guest directed one episode. John Watts approached us to do an episode a while ago. We love John, love Star Wars, love learning new tech, and we love meeting new cast and crew. We needed the days to keep our health care. So it was an easy yes. We shot it last year and had an incredible time working with the most talented cast and crew. I'm excited for you all to see it." So yeah, that's pretty interesting because it sounds like they've been doing Skeleton Crew for a while now. So hopefully we'll get to see it soon. Another bit of news. Netflix has tapped Academy Award nominee John Spates, who is writing both Dune Part 1 and Part 2, to pen the live-action Gears of War film. Now, this is based on the hit video game that debuted on Xbox in 2006 and went on to sell 40-plus million copies across 6 installments. Now, Gears of War watches a society divided and on the brink of collapse, facing total extinction by the Locust, a monstrous threat from below. Delta Squad, a ragtag fire team led by disgraced Sergeant Marcus Fenix, is then charged with leading humanity's last stand. Known for his work on feature films like Passenger, Doctor Strange, Prometheus, and The Darkest Hour, Spates nabbed an Oscar nomination for Dune, so that he co-wrote with Denis Villeneuve. He's also co-written the second installment of the series, which is set for release on November 3rd. So we'll be getting more of him. But yeah, he's been tapped to write the Gears of War film. So now, with it being a Netflix film, it's hard to tell whether they'll do what they did with Glass Onion and put it in theaters for a weekend or whatever, and then put it into Netflix, or they'll go straight to Netflix. If it's a big enough thing, I think they will put it in theaters for at least a short time. Jay says, "Gears is my jam. Have all the games, books, and comics." Very cool. So when that gets closer, we'll have to have you on as the Gears expert. All right, shifting over to Marvel, which we tend to like to do. Matt Shakman is directing the upcoming Fantastic Four reboot, and he was talking to The Wrap and said that they're going to purposely try to avoid the mistakes of the previous incarnations, and they want to focus on what the original comics were about. And he described it as being optimism, technology, a bright future, and the family dynamic. He wants to focus on the heart and what the FF stands for. Now, producer Kyle prefers Sprockets with Mike Myers over Gears. Okay, now, I got to tell you, when I read that, the way he described it was pretty much what science fiction used to be. You know, I mean, if you read older science fiction, it's about a hopeful future rather than a dystopian one. There's been a shift in what we consider sci-fi now. There's a horror element that comes into it. You know, we get stuff like Aliens and Predator, and that's where sci-fi has gone. But you look at Star Wars, and you look at Star Trek, and you look at some of the old sci-fi novels and stuff, it was about hope and about humanity reaching its possibilities and joining together to make things better. And of course, the future technology. That was always a big part of it. And a lot of what we have now comes from the science fiction of the past. people inspired by Star Trek and stuff like that who have gone on to create the things that they saw in these science fiction shows. So to me, that is a great way to handle the Fantastic Four, because I've never thought of the Fantastic Four as a superhero series. It's always been a science fiction book to me. It's like the Challengers of the Unknown for DC. They're not your classic heroes. They're not Spider-Man swinging around and stopping bank robbers, or, Iron Man taking on missiles, and they go into other galaxies and space, and they go into other dimensions, and they fight these kind of creatures, these scientific creatures. So again, and it started off as a sci-fi monster series, and I love that that's where they're leaning. So I can't wait to see what they're doing with it. I think it's very encouraging, and I'm very hopeful about what they're going to be doing. So, all right, let's go on to the other big news. And this one is kind of shrouded a bit in mystery. On Friday, Victoria Alonso, the longtime and high-profile Marvel Studios exec, who has been with the company since back from the first Iron Man, left the studio. The reason for the exit is unclear, but she parted ways with Marvel on Friday, and there hasn't been a reason to give it. Normally, if somebody who's been with a company that long is leaving to pursue other things or whatever, there is an announcement. There is a press release. Oh, David Smith is leaving Company Z to start his own production company, or to focus on X, Y, or whatever. She was the president in charge of special effects and stuff like that. She worked her way up to executive producer, and she's now, like I said, co-president of the company, of the studio, and she just leaves. And it sounds like there wasn't any notification, and she's been there 17 years, watching the studio grow, and it's really weird to see just her leave. So I've got to believe that there's a story there, which we may never get, because it could be a very personal thing. It could be something medical. It could be family. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why somebody suddenly leaves a company. And not all of them are negative to the studio. So I'm hoping this doesn't become fodder for more people that says Marvel's dying, and, oh, she bailed because Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't do as well as they thought it would, or I don't know. There's the internet runs with stories when they have very little information, and this sounds like it's going to be one that they're going to do that with. I'm hoping they don't, because she's one that helped build the studio. She's been a very important cog. If you read the history of Marvel Studios, the big 2-book set, she's very important to everything that happens and what we have today. So let's see. The vibe I got reading the internet is that she or a family member have a medical thing. Now, see, that's the type of thing that I thought it might be, because again, she just up and left, and there hasn't been an announcement. Now and for Marvel not to come out and do any kind of counter programming, or to come out and say, oh, well, this happened, that, it sounds like it's a very personal thing. So again, I'm hoping the internet doesn't run wild with this like they tend to do.
Dan, my thinking was, and what I was reading is that if she had quit or been fired, they would have announced her replacement.
Yeah.
This is a person who's stepping down out of nowhere because of something that just you have to deal with, and Marvel doesn't even know what to do yet.
Right.
So
yeah, it sounds like they're still reeling, and we're only on Tuesday, so we'll probably get some kind of announcement soon. But right now, I'd say let's just cool our jets on it. All right, we're going to take our first break, and then we'll come back and talk about what went wrong with Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Be right back.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons. To sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.
Everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Before we jump into our main topic, I just wanted to show this off. This is the print copy of the Old Origin Changes. I'm never going to get that title right. This is a book that is edited by my Popco the Writer's collaborator, Jim Beard. It's got a foreword by Dan DiDio, and it includes 6 essays from comic historians, love that term, that look at the changing origins of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Captain America, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man, and how they've changed over the years. Now, I wrote the Captain America essay, and I found that to be a very interesting story of how the character was first written as basically a way to motivate. I knew I forgot something. I was supposed to go get my copy of Origin from Jim last week. There you go. But yeah, Captain America was originally written to try to break America out of its isolationist during World War II, and then how it was redone by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, almost identical, but the tone and stuff changed to be more relevant to the 60s and how the character has changed over the years. So it's a pretty deep dive into that. Last night, I just got the book yesterday. Last night, I read the Wonder Woman part from Sam Agro, A-G-R-O. I've never met Sam, but it's also very well written and breaks down the history of Wonder Woman, Moulton Marston's influence on the character that he created, and how that changed over time. Denny O'Neil's turn on the character, George Perez. I mean, so far, yeah, that's a great read. And I still have 4 other stories to read, and then my own in there.
Hey, Dan.
Yes, Kyle.
So last night on the Vice TV channel, or the Vice TV channel program Most Expensivest with 2 Chains,
Uh-huh.
was Dinesh from Bad Idea.
Okay.
And they were talking about the most expensivest collections you could have that keep you young. And he was there showing off parts of his comic book collection. And he actually had sitting in front of him on the table the original first issues graded of almost every character in that book. And it made me
Nice.
think of the book that Jim wrote, going, well, Dinesh, here's a book that explains to you why your books are so important.
Jim edited, not wrote.
Put together.
Yes. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into our main topic. Now, we're not going to talk about the actual movie. We're not going to talk about spoilers or how good the movie is or isn't. If you've seen it, you probably have your own opinion on it. If you haven't yet, that's up to you. You know, we're going to talk about the abysmal opening and why it matters and what caused it. Now, Shazam! Fury of the Gods opened for just 30.1 million. Originally, it was 30.5, and when the actual numbers came in, finally, it dropped down to 30.1. Now, this was even estimated to do 35, which was an entirely low projection, and came in under its projection. So, this is one of the lowest openings for a superhero movie in a very long time. The only ones lower in the last 5-10 years, DC's Legion of Super Pets, which made 23 million, which is an animated feature, and James Gunn's Suicide Squad, which made 26.2 million, but that was made available to all subscribers on HBO Max for no additional charge the same day it was released. So, I mean, it's like the first Dune movie. That killed the box office for those movies. So, Fury of the Gods opened in theaters only. It is 44% below the original franchises, or the original film of the franchise. Shazam made 53.5 million its opening weekend. And nobody really knew that character at that point. Comic fans did, but nobody else did, and still made 53 million. This is below Birds of Prey, which made 33 million, and it's just barely above Constantine, which made 29.7 million back in 2005. You adjust that for inflation, Constantine kicks this movie's butt. Now, I stuck with DC there because if you start comparing it to the MCU, it's almost not fair because it's below all of them. The Eternals made 71.2 million, more than double what Shazam! Fury of the Gods did. Black Widow, which opened up on Disney Plus during the pandemic, still made 80.3 million in the box office. Even the lowest MCU opening of all time, The Incredible Hulk, came in at 55.4 million, which is 1.5 times higher than Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Ed says, that surprised me. I love the first Shazam movie, but I didn't notice it didn't get a lot of advertising. We were going to talk about that, Ed, because it's true. But first, the question is, okay, well, will it have legs? There are some movies that open up low and then start to build. The Greatest Showman was like that. It opened up had an okay opening, but built up over time. Well, probably not in this case. This weekend, we get John Wick 4. So I think a lot of people are going to be going to see that instead of going to see Fury of the Gods. The week after that, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, which is getting insanely good reviews. and a huge marketing push. Now, the first Shazam movie, made 140 million over its entire run. And then you look at Black Adam, which is basically a spinoff, it made 168 million in its run last year. But I don't think this one is going to even break 100 million domestically, which isn't even making it break even on its initial budget of 110 million, not counting the 100 million they spent on marketing. So what went wrong? Now, part of it is probably the backlash of Zack Snyder fans against Warner Brothers. And this is something that even the film star, Zachary Levi, acknowledges. But he also calls out the marketing and having it not focused on it being a family film. The film's initial trailer and cast were actually brought out at San Diego Con last year, which is a great way to start things out. But at the time, the movie was set to come out in December, and then it gets moved 3 months because they're afraid to have it open at the same time as Avatar: The Way of Water, which, yeah, good move to move it, but the delay didn't help. But it then gave them an opportunity to hit the biggest marketing moment of any year, the Super Bowl. They could have done an ad at the Super Bowl. And instead, they showed a trailer for The Flash, which doesn't open until May. Now, a 30-second spot in the Super Bowl costs $7 million this year. And that's only 7% of the film's marketing budget. And it could have made a huge difference by showing the largest single audience that they would be able to reach, that this family film was coming out, this big action spectacular. And instead they spent it on a film that could have a better upside, but it could also have a bunch of problems because of a problematic star. JD Smith says, when I saw the billboard of Shazam 2 and the tagline was, "This guy," I had no interest. Felt lazy and like an afterthought. I can't give a ship about your movie if you don't. Do more. Yeah, it was a very lackadaisical marketing campaign. And it's something that I'm a little surprised by. Even the trailers didn't make it seem all that spectacular. I mean, I'm seeing now in clips, there's all these mythical creatures, but other than the one dragon, we really don't see any of that in the initial trailers that came out. All right. Another thing that definitely didn't help was the announcement of new castings for Superman and Batman in the upcoming Superman Legacy and Batman Brave and the Bold under new studio chief James Gunn and Peter Safran. Now, the pair have been somewhat open about some things, like Henry Cavill's not coming back, Ben Affleck's not coming back, but they've been vague about other things. You know, we don't know what the fate's going to be for franchises like Shazam, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. And that ambiguity has led to a lot of fans feeling like the 4 film coming out this year may not matter going forward. Without knowing the fates of Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, and Levi, some fans just aren't interested in the current projects. You know, they had a Gadot little spoiler, but they have a Gadot cameo in Shazam. But that would have meant a lot more if she was still going to be Wonder Woman in the new DCU. But we don't know. Gunn and Safran could have made that clear one way or the other, but haven't. Which tells me the odds of those actors are done. Because if they were gonna stay, I think they would have come out and said, well, Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's staying as Wonder Woman. And Jason Momoa is gonna be Aquaman going forward. I think they're being quiet about it because they have these movies coming out. You don't want to come out and say, oh well, we aren't going to have Jason Momoa's Aquaman after this next film. When you want people to go see Aquaman, you want to. So I think they're being purposely vague because they don't want to undercut these movies. But in doing so, they're undercutting these movies. Let's see, the director of Shazam had to come out and say that Wonder Woman cameo wasn't a deep fake. Yeah. What he explained was that they had an actress on set, and then they had Gal Gadot filmed, but wasn't able to film at that time, so they kind of superimposed her in, and it wasn't that good a job. But that's why he had to come out and defend that.
So, Dan, there was a scene, and this is a little spoiler, where it's Wonder Woman's body and Jimon Hunsu's head. And that was the stand-in. And then they had to shoot the Zachary Levi Gal Gadot thing separately from everything else, because Gal Gadot wasn't going to fly to wherever they were filming for 2.5 lines.
Yeah.
Which is just wild to me. Like, she's not going to be Wonder Woman, but you're going to put her in for 2.5 lines? I wonder how much they had to pay her.
Yep. So, yeah. And I'm sure that gave you an odd erection, seeing Diamond Hunsu's head on her body.
It definitely did the kid who plays Billy Batson.
Yes. Now, so the fact that they're not telling these things, it's hurting them. And were these guys going to come back anyway? I don't think this opening is a good sign for that. All right, let's look at the critical response of the film. That's not been good either. But again, it's confusing because it has a 53% Rotten Tomatoes score, which is extremely low compared to the 90% the first film got. And from nobody that I'm hearing is it that different. Everybody's telling me it's a good continuation. So how did the critics who loved the first one suddenly go, no, I don't like it? But ironically, the audience score, which the first one had an 82%, is actually higher for the sequel at 87%. So what is up with critics lately coming out against these superhero movies? They did the same thing with Ant-Man. They came out against Ant-Man, negative reviews on Ant-Man, but the audience score was much higher. So it's almost like there's a backlash and the critics are coming out against superhero films, which I'm not a fan. I think they need to stop that. That sucks. So, all right. Director David F. Sandberg, besides coming out and defending that they didn't use a deep fake for Gal Gadot, was surprised by the response, the negative response. He says, I wasn't expecting a repeat of the first movie critically, but I was still a little surprised because I think it's a good film. Oh, well, as I've been saying for a while now, I'm very eager to go back to horror as well as trying new things. After 6 years of Shazam, I am definitely done with superheroes for now. Now, he's come out and said he doesn't regret doing the movies, but he's done. He's moving on. Rachel Zegler, who plays Athena in the movie, she wrote, hey, our film is actually really good, but mostly I just absolutely love making it and the people I met while doing it. Go see it. Give it a chance. We have an 85% audience score for a reason. Some people out there are just being senselessly mean, and it's unnecessary. And I know, if you can't handle the heat and all that nonsense, and you're right, but our film is actually very good. It's just cool to hate on fun nowadays. That's okay. We're good. JD's Sean, Dan, so glad to see you feeling better, sir. Well, thank you, Sean. JD says, if that's true, I don't know if I can blame them. The 2019 Halloween might have been a good movie, but I'm over stabby guys in a mask with all of its stupid timeline. Yeah, I get it. There's burnout. There's a lot of superhero movies out there. But there's also the big Zack Snyder backlash, and there's a lot of negativity out there right now. There's a quote I always go back to which is critics who use negativity as proxy for insight. They can't actually come up with something important to say or decent to say, so they go negative instead. So now there's one other factor that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but it could also play into the lackluster launch, and that's the choice of the villains. Now, no disrespect to Ziegler, Mirren, and Lucy Liu, they're all great. But the Daughters of Atlas really aren't a big draw. They're not even characters from the comics. And the trailers focused on them and very little on the mythical creatures that appear in the film, other than the dragon. And I think that would, if they would have focused on it being a family film and showed all these amazing creatures, I think that would have done better. But they didn't. Triple B says, I don't know why you have to be negative if you don't want to go see a movie. Just don't go see it. Yep. That's a great point. Now, the first film had Dr. Savannah, Mark Strong, and that's one of Shazam's best villains. But for all intents and purposes, they turned him into Black Adam by giving him the same powers as Shazam, which kind of made using Black Adam in this movie redundant. We just did that. So they didn't do Black Adam. Plus, I don't think Dwayne Johnson actually wanted to be in this movie. But there are other villains in the Shazam universe. Now, we got introduced to Mr. Mind in the cameo at the end of the first movie. And that seemed like, okay, we're going to get the genius alien worm as the bad guy in number 2. But no. Instead, what we end up with is another post-credit scene with him and Mark Strong in it again. And by the way, the voice of Mr. Mind is the director, Sandberg. So, yeah, that's probably a sign we're never going to get it, because normally they want to use a big-name actor. But there's other villains, too. If they didn't want to do Mr. Mind, they could have, I don't know, used Mr. Atom, the mad robot, or the powerful Ibok, or there's a giant demon called Sabak. These are all members of his rogues gallery. There's an entire monster society of evil to choose from, and instead they just made up some generic demigods. And now there's even some reports that the film is going to go to digital very quickly. Amazon Prime has it listed coming out on April 17th. So it's not looking good. I don't think this film is going to bounce back and suddenly, start cranking up the numbers. I think this is just a flop. And it doesn't sound like it's a fair thing. It sounds like the marketing department dropped the ball, and the negativity and toxic fan base out there are working against it. And maybe it's superhero fatigue for the critics. I don't know, but and they do not count. It's box office only. So JD says, I get the negativity, though. I'm tired of being insulted by cash grabs. And it's my job to sit through them and share my thoughts. You can bet I'm going to vent. Okay. And that's fine. But I don't know. When you see a movie like this, I mean, I've heard responses. The best response, of course, is somebody who's saying this is the best movie they've ever seen. The worst response I've heard is somebody who said, it wasn't a great movie, but I had a lot of fun. Does that deserve a 53% rating? Ed says, oh, yeah, we got that already. All right. We're going to take our second break, and we come back. I have a collection of some key Captain Marvel comics that you might be interested in what the values are. So we'll be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise. A promise of adventure. A promise of excitement. A promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey. And behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Remember to stick around. Right after this is In Stores This Week, where myself, Jay, Kyle, and Sean are going to be talking about the new books hitting the comic stores this week. And I'm told Kyle has a new hat. That's what I'm told. This may be one that Ed is particularly interested in. So stick around for that. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons down here, the thumbs up, whatever it is. Do me the favor, because that helps me out when the numbers go up. And tell your friends about the show. We've been doing this for a while now. Let's get some more people in here and have more fun. All right. Now, let's say you went in, you saw Shazam, you loved it, you think, I want to get some of the, I want to grow my collection. Wait, I was listening to the Cramps. Did you say my name? No, never. Never. If you say it 3 times in the mirror, he shows up. It's really weird. Anyway, so say you're a Captain Marvel fan or a Shazam fan, and you want to collect the comics. Here are some of the key issues that are out there. Some of them, very affordable. Others, they're going to hurt. So we're going to start off with, of course, first appearance of Captain Marvel and his origin, also the first appearance of Dr. Sivana and the 7 Deadly Sins, all took place in Whiz Comics #1. Now, high-end value on this one, $301,000. A little steep, you can find a mid-range one for about $106,000, or under somebody's coffee table somewhere in their birdcage, you might find one for as low as $34,000, but it's not going to be in very good condition. Now, the first ongoing Whiz Comics was weird because they kept it going with him in it, and then they started an actual Captain Marvel series. So his first ongoing series was Captain Marvel Adventures #1. Now, this going right now for about $89,000 on a high end. You might get one for about $4,000 on the low end, but you're probably looking at about $20,000 at least for a decent mid-range copy. Now, Dr. Sivana's origin, and we find out he has 2 children. This all happens in Whiz Comics #16. And this one's getting a little more reasonable in price. The high end's about almost $2,000, maybe 1.9. Mid-range is about $500, and low you're looking at probably 160. So a little more affordable. Now, when you think of the Marvel family, or the Shazam family, however you want to call it, you got to think about the other characters. The first appearance of Captain Marvel Jr., or Freddie Freeman, who is, by the way, Elvis Presley's favorite hero and who Presley styled himself after. This happened in Whiz Comics number 25. And this one goes for as high as 6.3 thousand or as low as 490 with a mid of about $1,500. Now, the first appearance of Mary Marvel, that took place in Captain Marvel Adventures number 18, and she's worth more. High end on this one is about 16,000. Low end is still about 1,300, but you're probably going to pay about $4,000 mid for a decent copy. Now, we talked about him during our thing. Another villain from from the books, Mr. Mind. His first appearance, his first actual physical appearance, he actually showed up in previous issues as a shadowy voice, but his actual first appearance as the little alien worm, Captain Marvel number 26. Now this is a pretty good one, because high end you're looking at about 1,700, but you might even be able to pick this up for about $150. On the low end, mid range is about 500. So, oh, wait, we got a thing. In Shazam 1, they called Mary Marvel Mary Shazam. In Shazam 2, Mary Marvel is just superhero Mary, which is better but still dumb. There's a whole story behind the whole Shazam thing. And it's a long story. But continuing with these, Marvel Family number 1 is important because it's the first appearance of Black Adam and gives his origin. Now you're going to pay high end about $40,000 for it. Mid range is about 14,000. You could probably pick one up, a reader copy, for about $5,000. Now, as you know, DC ended up buying out. There was a lawsuit because at one point Captain Marvel was out selling Superman, and he's a clone of Superman in a way. So DC sued them, sued Fawcett. Fawcett lost. They couldn't put the book out anymore. And then, while there was no Captain Marvel out there, Marvel Comics went, hey, we should be doing Captain Marvel. It's our name. So they put their Captain Marvel out there and trademarked it, which, you had to have a book in publication to do that. Fawcett couldn't. That's why they can't choose Captain Marvel. Now, DC ended up buying out Fawcett and picking up Captain Marvel. He first appeared in a DC comic in Shazam number 1. And this goes from anywhere from the high end of about $75 to mids about 20 to as low as $6. So this is a reasonable one to go out and look for. First DC appearance. So I think if I was putting a collection together, this would be the first one I hunted. A good copy of this. Now, the other thing is, once he got to DC, and of course the history between the characters, when was the first time Superman and Shazam fought each other or even met? They happened to take place at the same issue, and it's a weird issue. It's called All New Collector's Edition, number C-58. You can pick this up for about $100 on the high end, $30 for mid-range, and maybe as low as $10 for a reader copy. Now, another thing is Justice League number 7 in 2012. This is when they rolled out a new origin for Captain Marvel, a new origin for Black Adam. Plus, this is where they start calling him Shazam, not Captain Marvel. So 2012 is when they made the official flip. This book is really reasonable. Even the best copies are only going to go for about $3. You could probably pick them up for cheaper, maybe even a reader copy for $1 or or in a dollar bin somewhere. So, and then the final one, this is the first appearance of the modern Marvel family, or Shazam family as they're called now. This is Justice League number 21. This is where we get all the suits and everybody gets their costumes, and we see the family as they appear in the movies. And again, this is another reasonable one to pick up. High end, you're only looking at about $10. And again, probably $2 for a mid-range copy, or maybe in a dollar bin even. So Pastor Michael says $100 for the first meeting of Shazam and Soups. That's cheap. Yeah. Hey, Ken, it's good to see you. So those are some books you can look out for. I do find it interesting that the whole problem with Captain Marvel not being able to use the name Captain Marvel is because they didn't have the trademark for it. And Marvel Comics went, but then we will, which is very on the nose. I mean, that's just getting out there. So, all right, guys. So that's our breakdown of Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and why it's not doing so well. Tomorrow I'm going to take a look back at the Loki series. I've rewatched it. I got 2 episodes left to finish tonight, but we're going to do a rewatch thing on Loki. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk about the new Mandalorian and the new Bad Batch. Coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to try to set up time with our painting friend to do Luna to do more about Warhammer. And I've got some other ideas for show. At some point, I want to do something that takes the Marvel and the DC versions of a character and kind of puts them head to head, but I want to find a co-person for that. So like Namor and Aquaman, Green Arrow and Hawkeye, and kind of talk the two of them up. But that's something I'm thinking about, and we'll see if I can put that together. But I do definitely want to co-host on that one. So, all right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Stick around. I will be right back with Kyle, Jay, and Sean for In Stores this week. See you in a minute.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.